Hey everybody, Edo here, and I am excited because I have Alan Gerding on the line, phone, Skype. Say hello, Alan.
Hey, how's it going?
Good, good. And if you didn't know, Alan is founder of Tuesday Night Games. That's night with a K, and a psychology professor as well, or more so perhaps. But most famous for Two Rooms and a Boom, number of other games, including an awesome podcast. But like always, one of the places I want to start with is sort of your origin story. How did Two Rooms and a Boom happen back in the day? I mean, that was a very successful campaign out of the blue.
Yeah, we were shocked, but the story begins when I was peddling my games at game conventions trying to get published. And I just did it in a bumbling sense where I would walk around and just say, hey, you want to play my game? And eventually I bumped into Arcane Wonders, which produces Mage Wars. And Mage Wars had me do a whole bunch of play testing for them. And eventually they asked me to do videos for them too. So if you go to Mage Wars and you want to learn how to play, there's a tutorial video and it's all me. And
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Maybe you should still do that, man. I can get a how-to video. Anyway,
Yeah,
so
some tutorials. Yeah, and
yeah,
Mage Wars is heavy. So
right.
that was a good video. But Sean McCoy, my now business partner, was in charge of editing and filming and all that jazz. And we hit it off really well. I was getting engaged. I had an engagement party. And as a tabletop geek, we had a whole weekend. We called it CrystalCon because my wife's name is Crystal. So everyone came over, played games. Sean flew in from Dallas just to attend. And he said, hey, let's make a game together. And I said, all right. So literally we talked to one another for less than an hour, as bizarre as that sounds. And we came up with Two Rooms and a Boom. This was the same weekend as Proto Spiel, which was in Michigan. And so Sean and I just hopped into the car, drove to Michigan, went to Proto Spiel, and we had printed out
This is
cards.
at your wedding, during your wedding party for your wife
This is an
to be.
engagement party, not a
Engagement
wedding
party.
party.
So it doesn't matter. It's Crystal Con, named after her. You're like, you know what, babe? I gotta go. Have fun with your friends. I'm out.
The party was over. The party was already over. I was cleaning up, and it was actually that's when Sean was
I see.
talking to me. He said, "Hey, let's make a game." And Sean wasn't really helping me
I was
clean up. He was
just
just watching.
clarifying the timeline. It's important.
Yeah, I didn't leave her crying at the altar or anything like that. It wasn't like games, babe. Sorry. So we drove to Michigan, and it went really well when we played Two Rooms and a Boom. We were so happy, we were almost crying. And we had 3 different publishers make us offers right there and then for it. And then, like idiots, we said, no, let's just make it on our own. So we started our own company, Tuesday Night Games, and published Two Rooms and a Boom.
Yeah, and
That's
I don't necessarily want to take you through all of the pain and sorrow, but the so Two Rooms in a Boom was somewhat notorious because it was a very successful campaign, but you guys had a number of issues that delayed you substantially, right?
yeah. We were a year later than we thought, and there were plenty of reasons as to why, including the planning fallacy, as they say in social psychology. So if you just Google planning fallacy, you'll see that research shows that human beings have this amazing ability to totally underestimate how much time it will take. So I didn't follow that advice. And when you say, I'll be there in 20 minutes, if you do yourself a favor, you're always supposed to triple it. So you should say, I'll be there in an hour, because it's always better to underpromise and overdeliver than the other way around and overpromise and underdeliver. But the main thing was when we got our first print run, the cards were transparent, which we didn't want. You don't want that in a hidden role game. So imagine that you have this hidden character on a card, and then from across the room, someone could see what your card is.
So okay, I got a question.
Yeah.
But that's not like a standard print. So how did that even, like, how could you be in a position where somebody thought you wanted that?
It's a really good question. And I don't want to throw the manufacturer under the bus at all, because in my opinion, they did a great job of basically apologizing and making corrections and whatnot. But the truth of the matter is, Two Rooms and a Boom has plastic cards. And the reason Two Rooms and a Boom has plastic cards is because you handle them all the dang time. Just putting them in your pocket out, showing only part of it. So we wanted them to be resilient, and so you can play it in a pool party, Two Rooms and a Boom. And the company with which we went had never done printing on plastic cards before. And they said, oh, we'd love to start. We'd love to trust us with this venture. And so what they had to do is had to find a factory that would print plastic. And the first factory they went to, no good, no bueno. And that's where we got the transparent cards from.
Interesting.
And that delayed us a lot.
Yeah, start over again.
Yes.
So I mean, and again, on my channel, I do a lot of stuff around Kickstarters and being prepared and budgeting, and even when you are planned, even when you are on a, doing it the right way, things happen. I mean,
absolutely.
And that one's particularly bad, but choice of a partner, choice of a manufacturer, mistakes, miscommunications, they really have a big impact. But so that happens. It's sort of a funny thing, but your game comes together. I've reviewed it. It's a fantastic game, basically two sides, and you're trying to be a terrorist or not a terrorist and detonate a bomb. But it's got a great flow, and I think I remember, I can't remember which convention, but you released and then you had a convention and you sold all of it, right? I mean, it's been...
We released at Gen Con, and we sold out right away, and we brought, I want to say, like 700 copies or whatever, which against the big dogs, that's not that much. But for literally just two friends starting this company and bumbling their way through, trying to figure their way through the dark, that was a huge deal to us. So we were totally floored by the amount of backers we got. We've funded in day one within 2 hours. And then it just has been snowballing ever since. We get more and more people playing Two Rooms and a Boom now than ever, which is also ridiculous.
Well, it speaks to the virality of a game that you can play with 30 people, right? It becomes each time it gets played, it's like 20 people just played my game. I guess a couple, even if 10% buy it, you're on a pretty good trend there.
You nailed it, which is why it'll always be available for free on PDF at our website, TuesdayNightGames.com, because if just one of those people decides, hey, I like this and I want the official version, boom. Yeah, right. It makes sense.
Yeah, and that was a big part of the Cards Against Humanity play as well. But you do sell through retail. You can find this at stores. You're not going the pure direct from you guys version, or are you?
We do direct to retailers. Right. The distribution, we don't do distribution. We do sell through Amazon mostly.
Oh, okay.
But for retailers, if we have a personal relationship and they basically just contact us and ask us, and we're actually streamlining it. We're doing things behind the scenes right now that hopefully by Christmas time, any retailer from any part of America, because overseas it's tougher, can just go on our website and start becoming a retailer that has a ready, steady supply of Two Rooms.
They sign up and then they get the a rate that's more appropriate for a retailer, and then they sell it in their stores. Unlike a lot of the with Cards Against Humanity, where you'd have retailers buying it online and then selling it at their store and things like that. Yeah. I do think they made some arrangements with Target and some other providers, but so
I see it all over the place. Nowadays.
So that age is gone, I think. But it's a certain model, and Tim Fowers does that model. I mean, you cut yourself a lot of extra revenue per copy, especially if you have a game that has that sort of inherent virality, word of mouth, and it's not really reliant on store copies to move. So so this was. I mean, so you sort of exploded onto the scene. You do Two Rooms, super fun game, super popular game, and then I don't know, maybe a year and a half later. I guess maybe it was a year after you guys finally delivered or something like that. So maybe it was 2 years later.
Exactly.
You guys did World Championship Russian Roulette.
Yes,
and which I've also reviewed and I also quite enjoy, and really nice similar production quality on the box.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. I like your stuff too.
Oh, thank you. But the similar party game, but more structured, or I guess not party in the same vein as Two Rooms and a Boom, but like a high player count, a big player count game. but there was, it was more of a game. You had the cards and your tokens. I mean, it was more of a board game, a
Yeah,
party
it's
board game.
a classic board game, 2 to 6 players, but you can expand it almost infinitely up to 12 players. But it has simultaneous play and plays in just 20 minutes.
Right.
So it's a whole get in, get it done, have fun, get out. And if you didn't like it, you didn't waste a whole bunch of your time. But chances are you will like it. So
And how's that one been doing for you?
So this is the funny story that it's not going to make me sound like a smart person, or maybe
Don't worry,
anyway.
you don't.
Yeah. I'm not going to impress anyone with this story, and I didn't come on here thinking I'm going to impress a lot of people. Ed, let me tell you, we were really. I shouldn't even say this, but I'm going to. We were really shocked at World Championship Russian Roulette because we thought, man, it is not doing as well as Two Rooms and a Boom. What's up with this? And then we sat down with some industry insiders and they said, well, how many are you selling? And we explained our sales rate and they said, that's totally normal. How's Two Rooms and a Boom doing? We're like, well, Two Rooms and a Boom is selling this much. And they said, that's ridiculous. So we had this really rare lightning in a bottle, one first hit wonder, I should say. And holding World Championship Russian Roulette compared to that is different because it also doesn't have the virality that Two Rooms said, which you are the first person who really nailed that right away in the interview, saying that it only takes 10 minutes to play Two Rooms and a Boom, but 30 players. But it takes a good 5 minutes to learn how to play World Championship Russian Roulette, and it doesn't play as many players. So more traditionally, it was a lot slower turning. But the good news is, Gesundheit.
Thank you.
We are now selling more World Championship. Gesundheit.
More and more what?
World Championship Russian Roulette nowadays too, and that's in a big part that we're not good at marketing. That's just the truth of the matter. I spend most of my days in my classroom and talking with students, not thinking about Gesundheit, not thinking about how we're going to get these in the public eye. So it's only now, it's funny because there will be these YouTubers that are playing World Championship Russian Roulette, and they'll say, hey, we're playing this hot new game by Anthony Birch and Tuesday Night Games. And we're thinking, dude, this game's like 2-3 years old at this point. Like, all right, cool. But to them, it's new, and that's great. So it's slowly catching on.
Awesome. Well, and so we actually are going to one more sort of standard fare, and then some interesting new stuff you guys are doing. But so you did something that's not uncommon for noteworthy Kickstarter creators. Is somebody has a hit, and then everyone's sort of curious about them, and then they continue working it along, and then they have more normal or performing or underperforming. I know an example would be James Hudson, right? Had his first the little farm bird game, I don't remember the name of it, Backyard Roundup or something like that. And then he had Grim Forest, which was like huge. It was like a monster campaign.
That one I've heard of, yeah.
And then he had Guardian's Call, which was like just did 50K, right? Like just did what is great. And dealing with that sort of like, to look at everything as a success in its own right, rather than some comparative, thing is, I think, a challenge. And then you went even smaller. So you sort of did this huge party game, and then you added some complexity, and then you did That's Not Lemonade, which
is the most recent one, right?
Most recent. And correct me if I'm wrong, but that was a fairly modest campaign. I don't see where it ended.
Yeah, it didn't explode by any means. But here's the thing about That's Not Lemonade. We did almost literally no marketing for it, and we almost did it as an experiment. Sean and I actually had this conversation where we said, man, we haven't been sending this out. We haven't really had too much word of mouth. We talked about it on our podcast, and we showed it in its original form, You Mad Bro, the year prior at our booth at Gen Con and Origins. And that was pretty much it. That's all we really did. And we said, well, let's just see how it goes. Because here's the one thing that we're starting to realize with World Championship Russian Roulette. The fact that it's now catching on goes to this idea that there's, for lack of a better term, cash grab games, where maybe you slap on a really popular license, or you have some type of, for lack of a better term, gimmick in the game. And so there's this rush to go ahead and play it. but then it fizzles out after that. And I know our industry has been called a frontline industry where people always want the newest, greatest, and
Sure.
latest game. And for the most part, that's totally true. However, if you make a really good game to the point where it stands the test of time, our hope and our belief is that will oversee the marketing, that slowly but surely, because we put a lot of time and resources
Sure.
and development in World Championship Russian Roulette. As people play this, their response isn't, oh, that was a good game. Their response is more, where has this game been? Oh my goodness. And so it keeps hitting the table again and again and again. So our hope is we only want to release, for lack of a better term again, not cash grab games, but games that we think people will genuinely want to pull out and hit the table again. And I know that's
Well,
what everyone wants.
yeah, no, but good games get bigger over time, right? Actually, like
Yeah,
games that resonate, and continue to resonate, and that's a lot has a lot to do with how virality and growth works in board games. It's not something you can prime. I mean, it is absolutely something you can prime, but there's only so much you can do. It has to scale on its own. It's not like video games and mobile games where you can pay to scale it so much. I mean, again, there's comparisons, but a good game does that on its own and get people want to play it again and share it. And one of the beauties of board games and card games versus video games is you don't have a platform that restricts you to a time frame, right? So if you're
right.
going to release a whatever Xbox One game,
Hmm.
there's a window there, but then there's a new system and no one has that console
Right.
anymore. A board game's like a book. Something that was good 30 years
Yep.
ago is still good today.
Yeah.
I played a
Thunder
game.
Road. Have you
Yeah.
played Thunder Road? I love
Situation
Thunder Road.
4 is from like 40 years ago. It's a competitive, simultaneous jigsaw puzzle battle game,
Ooh,
and it is amazing. It is
I've
amazing.
never played it and I'm enthralled. The jigsaw puzzle battle game sounds incredible.
It is. It delivers. It absolutely delivers. Um, and
To
so,
emphasize your point on the other half, I have so many light gun games for my PlayStation 2. I had every single, no exaggeration, every single light gun game that was released for the PlayStation 2 useless now because of flat screen televisions. You need the old tube televisions for it to work. And now, so bummed. Miss
totally
them.
gone. Yeah, yep, I agree, man. So, okay. So then you're doing this interesting thing, and I actually wasn't even aware of it, and I reach out to people to have chats.
Mhm.
But then before we talk, I like go to your site and I do a little catch up and research because
Right, right.
like to know what
Due
I'm talking about
diligence.
just a little. It's like the 5 minutes before, but I saw your mothership Sci-Fi Horror RPG. And
Yeah.
right before we got on, I asked you about it because I was like, "Is it a Kickstarter?" And you're like, "No, man, it's live and available." So, like, walk us through and like the RPG space is like both cluttered and destroyed and vibrant and alive. It's the forest that burnt through, and there's these things coming up that are changing people's minds and lives. Tell me how this all went down.
It's such a different beast. The role-playing game fan base is strong and nebulous because the truth of the matter is I started with an interest in role playing games. When I started designing games, it was because at first I was playing Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay, which I have a whole bunch of books behind me there, and that was my go to role playing game.
You also have a
And
chicken. I'm just saying.
yeah, I do. Yeah, I do. So, it's a rooster, but hey. So the thing is that I was frustrated with some of the rules. And so I changed a lot of rules and modified and actually came up with this card-based combat system and went to Gen Con and spoke with the lead designer at the time for Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay, and that was Jay Little, and showed him cards. And I wasn't trying to be a game designer. I was just a psychologist doing this for fun on the weekends, and I just wanted to geek out with someone. And the next year I go, Jay Little says, he sees me, he doesn't remember my name, but recognizes my face and says, "Oh, hey, dude, come here." It's like, "Hey, you got to see something." And he shows me Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay 3rd edition, which they're releasing. and there's cards, and it's a whole card-based combat type system. And I was like, oh, sweet. And the idea that maybe I had some
Well, was like,
hand in
oh,
it.
sweet, you stole my idea. Thanks for showing me.
Well, I'm not saying that because he did ask. I remember I ate lunch with Jay Little in the first Gen Con I went to. I said, I want to talk to the lead designer of Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay. And he was very respectful and quiet. And he asked me directly, he said, why are you showing me this? What do you want to do with this? And I said, I'm just showing you for fun. Like, I just want to talk about it with someone. That's it. Nothing. Like, you can have this, you can do whatever you want. And I told him that. I came home and my girlfriend, now wife at the time, was pissed. Because when I said, hey, I saw a card, she's like, oh my goodness, are you getting money? I was like, what are you talking about? Money? No, like, it's just cool. So that's how far off my fingers were from the pulse of what the hell was going on, because there was
like,
no...
I'm marrying an idiot.
Yeah, exactly. So, but that was kind of inspired me, because I thought, even if I have some type of hand in that, that's nothing compared to all the other ideas I have for game design. So the whole point of me bringing that up is that I started with role-playing games, and Sean and I have a strong love for role-playing games and always have, even though we made Two Rooms and a Boom and these other card games and board games.
Well, so was it more like, hey, I want to make one of these things, or you're like, where's Dead Space, the RPG? That's what I need right now. Like, how does this connect together?
So this is all Sean, and I'm going to be so honest that it may piss off Sean. Because
I've seen Sean pissed at you. It's like a regular thing.
It's one of these things where I'm too much of an open book, I think, for Sean's taste. So maybe I'm going to step on his nuts a little bit here. So we'll see what happens. Sean is basically full-time Tuesday night games, where I'm doing my psychology thing basically 5 days out of the week. And we're trying to get ready for That's Not Lemonade and get ready for our next game 4, that kind of thing. And there's this lull. And sometimes I don't hear from Sean for a while. And then Sean emerges and says, hey, I made this role-playing game. So he made this role-playing game and he showed it to me, and it was gorgeous and amazing. And of course, I couldn't help but get behind it, because I said, man, we got to run with this thing. So right then and there, he went ahead and produced a small print run of these zines of Mothership, and we brought it to Origins, and they almost totally sold out. People were really interested, because not only do we love role-playing games, we also love the movie Alien and Aliens. And basically, it's Alien, the role-playing game, but not because of the alien, but because of the whole atmosphere of the sci-fi horror. It's a big difference between sci-fi horror, sci-fi, and sci-fantasy. Sure. Because Star Wars is sci-fantasy. You got magic and a whole bunch of other amazing things going on. This is science fiction, where it's humans really out of their element, exploring space, trying to figure out what the hell's going on. And the scariest things are what you don't know. And it doesn't necessarily have to be an alien. It could just be your fellow team players, because one of the coolest elements of Mothership that I love is there's only 4 classes. There's a Teamster, so like Ripley from Aliens, a union worker. There's a Marine, Space Marines, basically, from Aliens too. There's a Scientist, which, makes sense. That's pretty much why we should be in space. But then there's the androids. And the androids are the embodiment of the corporation. They're basically lawful good towards whoever created them and designed them. And if, plot spoiler, for those of you that haven't seen the Alien movie, the android's interest is normally in line with what is the most profitable. So there's already this suspicion, and one of the cool mechanics that happens in Mothership is that the GM, or as Sean has named that role, the Warden. The Warden pulls aside into the hallway away from the game table the android to give the android information, basically this idea of the internet being directly connected to the corporation at all times. But this arises some suspicion with the other players. So you can come back and your android sits down and you as a player want to ask, like, so what was that about? Like, what's going on? And it could be nothing. Like the android player could say, they just wanted to make sure that all of our supplies are being met, that we don't need a supply run. But is that really what was being said, or are you totally lying to us right now? So it's weird that it's this very cooperative role-playing game, and you don't even have to play it this way, but there's elements of suspicion there. Anyway, it's brilliant. He made this zine. We published it, and there's been such a huge demand. We're really amazed at how this has caught fire, because at Gen Con we sold out, and people said, well, we want modules. So between Origins and Gen Con, Sean, Don Stroud, and Fiona Geist, these three friends of ours, basically Sean being one of those friends, worked together and came up with some modules and adventures. And now that sold really well as well. And that's called Dead Planet, the first kind of module-based entity in the Mothership universe. But we have these fans. It's so bizarre because, Ed, you do conventions constantly, and you have a typical fan base that comes up and asks you about your games, whatever. But now it's so bizarre having a role-playing game on our shelf behind us in the booth too, because some people will just come up, not look at all at the board game, be like, that's shut. Mothership. And we've had people literally just walk right past us, go to the shelf, grab Mothership, say this, and totally ignore anything else that's there. So it's definitely the strong consumer market for role players.
Well, something,
so different.
Yeah, and that's actually something that I've seen in other booths and groups too. But it's when you make different products, like when you essentially are a publisher that's a little less brand oriented and a little bit more build what we want oriented, like because it's your jobby and you're doing what you want on the side.
I love that term, jobby. I haven't heard that before. I love it.
Yeah,
totally my job.
Yeah, you end up in situations where you have things that are really very divergent in their audiences, right? And so something you need to figure out and how to manage is how to both build and promote your brands that are sort of casual party, those types of things. And then there's like dark horror space and that audience that wants different things, different communities, different forums, different types of marketing, right? Are you doing any of the drive-through RPG sort of space? Is it direct?
Absolutely. Yeah. So the idea is you can go to our website and there's links there. But for now, I believe currently at the time of this interview, everything's still pay what you want. So you can get it for free if you want to, because this is still technically the pre-release. Because the idea is once we garner enough of a fan base, then when we release the official fully proofread and all the T's crossed and I's dotted, and we have had enough feedback and we just really tighten down everything we want it as we'd like it to be, then we'll come out with the hardcover, etc. But right now, there's nothing stopping anyone from getting it.
It's interesting, just to state the obvious. One of the most, compelling bits, obviously, because you thought it was compelling, that you explained was this idea around the pulling the person aside, telling them the secret or the not secret or the whatever, and then going about their business. And like while you were talking about it, it just struck me. It's like, oh, well, that's basically a social party dynamic added to a role-playing game, right?
Right.
And so and there aren't that many, you did the Cthulhu game, right? But there aren't that, which is sort of like, I don't even consider that horror anymore. But it seems like a small step to just say, hey, let's take this, but give you some cards, give you the roles, and make this a 30-minute party game or 20-minute session-based party game, not
with
just
role-playing elements.
Yeah, well, it's your brand, but I'm just saying, hey, this idea of these like characters, and you can be represented on a card and have the events happening, and then do it more like that.
Yeah,
seems like a space between your two products.
Yeah, absolutely. It's fascinating that you bring this up, because some people have asked me, what have you done with Mothership? Because my name is pretty much only there in the credits, but I haven't written anything. I haven't drawn anything. It's almost entirely Sean. Mothership is, but Dead Planet is a mixture. But I've been working on a module that's a one-shot that really emphasizes exactly what you're talking about, because in my mind, I kind of want that Venn diagram overlap of meeting our tabletop base and getting them into Mothership, the role-playing base, by having this one-shot, maybe an hour session where it has all those elements. So I love what you're saying, and that's actually what I've been doing. I've been working on in between, getting ready for Shucks, and I do a Halloween show every year and that kind of jazz. So yeah, I'm excited to release that when it does happen.
Yeah, no, I think it would be cool. The interesting thing when you're dealing with brands and IP and franchises, even if they're your own, is um, trying to nail the aesthetic of the experience as opposed to the mechanics or dynamics, right? So if you can sort of carry the emotional impact of what it's like to play the RPG or what it's like to do it in different states, then that's how you really can carry it well. Sometimes you can get caught in between of like, well, it plays this way, but like sometimes it's hard to get, standard board gamers. Like the Siblings Trouble was a game that sat between board gamers and RPGs, and
Yeah.
I loved how it came together, but we always had a hard time sort of getting that right mix of the role player and the board game player together. To roll it out. So it's a balance. But so I guess, I feel like I played some version at some convention of Two Rooms and a Broom where you were like, check out the dragon, prince, noble.
You want to tell me about the expansions that?
Yeah, what's happening and what's next in Two Rooms and a Boom?
So I've been doing this for over a year now because you played some version of this. It was BGG Con, I remember, because it's always fun hanging out with you. By the way, for those that don't know, Ed has helped us out immensely. Ed, this guy that's interviewing me right now, so friendly at the shows. Yeah, that guy. So friendly at the shows, has sat down with us, and we've asked questions. You've given us such amazing advice. So I was really glad you were able to come down for some of the expansions for Two Rooms and a Boom. Our next expansion that we have planned, which we don't even have a release date for, but we've been playing a ton of this and making sure it's as tight as possible, is Two Rooms and a Groom. Two Rooms and a Groom is actually playable with just 5 players. So Two Rooms and a Boom is 6 to 30 players. Two Rooms and a Groom is a standalone expansion where you can just have 5, but it really adds in these new mechanics without making it any more complicated. Long story short, there's now 2 teams. Instead of red team and blue team, there's the wedding team, and then there's the wedding crashers team. And the wedding team, all they need to do is make sure that the wedding goes off without a hitch. You need the 2 would-be spouses and the officiant to end up at the grand hall or the great hall, basically where they get married. But the wedding crashers want to make sure that doesn't happen. Another expansion that I've been working on, I've been calling Ram Sham Boom, which is basically there's 3 teams now instead of 2. There's the rock, paper, and scissors team. So in the original Two Rooms and a Boom, there's the red team that has a bomber and the blue team that has a president.
That's the one I played, right?
I believe so, yes. Yeah. And so there was like the dragon team was the scissor team, and the warrior team was the rock team, but then the royalty team was the paper team. And so the dragon wanted to be with the prince, and the prince wanted to be with the Valkyrie warrior, but the Valkyrie warrior wanted to slay the dragon. So whichever 2 ended up
those love triangles get you every day.
Yeah, it's fun. It's a lot of fun. So, and there's other expansions too. Like there's a moderator pack that I've been working on. So if the game doesn't require a moderator, but if you do have a moderator, the moderator can actually play as a character and do a whole bunch of interesting things, because now players can actually come up and hand their card to the moderator, and based on what card they hand the moderator, different things can happen. And there's also a set I call Mission Impossiboom, which is where everyone, in addition to playing the regular game, they get these secret mission cards that they have to do. It could be something as simple as be a hostage once through the game, meaning you switch rooms at least once through the game, or it could be very specific where you have to convince someone to show you their card without you showing them anything. So it adds this extra little element
it's legacy time.
Here's the crazy thing. Here's this crazy story. No one has ever asked me this, but one of the stretch goals for Two Rooms and a Boom was basically to make a legacy story for Two Rooms and a Boom. And I spent months writing this thing, and I came up with this system, and then we released it on our Kickstarter through a PDF. and not one person downloaded it out of all of those. And this is before legacy games were really popular, because this is before, I believe, Legacy Pandemic. But
Sure.
we didn't use the Legacy moniker. I think we just said story-based 2 rooms and a boom. And after that, we eventually just took it down. And now I think I have it in my back pocket, so I can maybe give it some more spit and polish if I was going to do that. But yeah, that's another idea that I've already busted my hump on.
Everyone had their moment to have it, and they lost it.
Yeah.
In the wind.
It's just, it's gone. It's gone. Yeah, it's ridiculous. So seriously, out of all the people we had back, not a single person has even asked for it all these years later. It's just one of these things like, wow, nobody cares. Oh. So, oh well.
Cool, man.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, so it sounds like you mentioned SHUX, sorry?
Shucks, yes.
Shucks.
The Shut Up
and that's
Expo.
October 12th or 14th, I think. So that's the next place you're going to be?
Yes, that will be the next place I'll be. After that, it's already sold out. Every year I do this Ravenwood Castle thing in Ohio where I host a Halloween weekend. And then after that, I believe it's BGG Con, then PAX Unplugged. Which one happens first? Do you know? PAX Unplugged?
Yeah. PAX Unplugged, I could be mistaken, but BGG Con kept its weekend, and I think PAX Unplugged is the first weekend in December. So if you don't care about your family, you could do the first one, do Thanksgiving, and then do the second one. But
yeah. So we'll be at all of those things too. We're going to that. So I guess, sorry, honey, I'm running with Sean all over the place again.
Does she ever go along, or is she into games?
So she's into games, but she's into very specific games. In fact, she loves Ascension, and that's how I proposed to her. So if you Google Ascension proposal, you'll see a video of me proposing to my girlfriend, now wife, because she said yes. But I contacted Justin Gary from Stoneblade Entertainment and that entire crew, and they actually had an official card made with our art. So I slipped it in, and so when it came out, it was an image of the two of us. It was amazing. And now that's still a card that can be bought as one of the expansion cards. Anywho, yeah, she likes her games, but she's not much of a con goer. But she'll play very specific, and I could name exactly which game she loves. And as self-serving as it sounds, she loves all of our games, and that's actually kind of the secret of the sauce, is that I don't want to release any games that my wife doesn't like to play, because otherwise it's harder for me to play them. So if it's not wife approved, sorry.
Yeah, for sure. All right, man. Well, it's been awesome talking to you again. It seems like you've got a lot going on, and you've had your share of bumps, but lots of success. Both the massive, huge, incredible success of Two Rooms and a Boom, and then just normal, everyday, cool success with the other games.
Yeah.
Super interested in how the RPG space goes for you. I think, as I mentioned again, there's just this regrowth happening in the space. I think that's super interesting right now. Yeah,
it's a very lateral step. It's interesting to see what will happen. Yeah, and if you're really interested, I should do this slight plug. We have a Mothership Playcast episode. So on our podcast, Tuesday Night Podcast, we release a new episode every Tuesday. But if you look for the Mothership episode, that is a run through, and it's actually one of our most viewed episodes because it's so different than the regular content of our podcast where we do interviews much like you do. And you've been on our podcast before. Thank you. But this one is just us playing Mothership, and it gives you a really strong taste of what it's like.
Cool. I'm sure a number of people check that out. But, good sir, thanks for being on. Everyone, thank you so much for watching. See you soon.
Thank you so much, Ed. Thank you for watching, everybody. Bye.
All right. So now, hey, everybody. Edo here, and thanks for watching Gaming with Edo. Reviews over here on this playlist, League and Insider videos over here on this one. Subscribe, share, all that good stuff. But most importantly, play some great games. Thanks. Bye.